What up, YouTube? Chief X at you with this common sense science again. You know, I ain't been around a lot lately, but I've been thinking about some topics and some things I want to discuss, and just been jumping off a new business, so I've been kind of excuse me. I've been kind of busy, so a lot of YouTube shit I've been disinterested in lately. But I just wanted to bring up a topic. And first of all, let me give a shout out to Chef Reen. His channel called Chef Madness. And I appreciate him bringing up new topics in the so-called conscious community. So like, conscious community is always on the same topics. Debating religion and a bunch of other nonsense. Shit that I did in the early 90s. I'll be damned in 2023 if I'm going to sit up here and debate about Christianity and religion in 2023. I wouldn't waste my time. First of all, I don't debate about my mama's religion, my family's religion, my mama, my daddy, my grandparents' religion. I don't debate that shit and bash it. You've never seen Chief X arguing about Christianity and religion. Never. It's ridiculous. It's old and played out. So, a lot of people want to debate Christianity and religion. That's their thing. Chief X is not into it. Okay? Now, what I wanted to say is conscious community need to have new topics in discussion. Like, I made a few videos talking about the geography of sub-Saharan Africa and how it's problematic. Totally new topic, new discussion, a topic people have never spoke on or understood or cared about. But it's a very powerful discussion and understanding. And it gives you an understanding of how sub-Saharan Africa remained underdeveloped. Once you understand the geography issue, right? Now, a thing I've been talking about lately, more specifically on social media and my Facebook page, Farrakhan made a statement some years ago. I think it might have been late 90s or 2000. And I was pissed at him when he made this statement. But now I think a little deeper and I understand where he came from. He made a statement, and that is, what you don't use, you lose. And he was referring to the Native American population prior to colonization and during colonization, right? He said, what you don't use, you lose. And I thought he was giving credit to Europeans for colonizing Native Americans. But not really. I had to think about that concept and phrase, what you don't use, you lose. And that's some real shit he said. So like, I remember I broke my arm last year, right? And I had a cat, not last year. This is what, 5 years ago. And I had a cast on my arm. Right? For a few months. When I took that cast off, my right arm, which I broke, was smaller than my left arm. A bit. Because I wasn't using it or exercising it. So it just kind of reverted to a lack of working out and exercise, and it was a little bit thinner than my right. It was weaker than my right. Because I wasn't using it, I lost it. So what Farrakhan was saying, what you don't use, you lose, is that he was referring to a lot of Native Americans wasn't tilling the land and building. And a group of people came to the Americas searching for a new land and expansion and building up the country, nation, or land. It wasn't a Native American thing, so they lost. Right? So, let me run this by you. Maybe you can understand. And this is my point. Europeans came to Africa, colonized it, divvied it up, chopped it up. They also obtained precious resources from the land. And I had to think about it. These precious resources that they were obtaining, producing, and manufacturing, and bringing into the world of science to improve the world. For example, things like cobalt, diamonds. These are things that Africans didn't give a shit about or know about. They weren't as scientifically literate to care about certain things and mining certain things and obtaining these precious resources on the land. So I posed the question on my social media, if a people who weren't scientifically literate in that sense, weren't mining cobalt, diamonds, and wasn't selling it to the world, they didn't give a fuck about it, didn't know how to mine it, didn't care about it, didn't know its use. If a people come to a barren land and set up camp, is that wrong? No, in my opinion. Right? So, I had to come to the understanding that sub-Saharan Africa was spaced out. It was tribal. Meaning, there was also a lot of open, vast land not occupied. And when explorers, whether they're Asian or European, when explorers come to parts of land that is vacant, not inhabited, they can set up camp. There is no rules or control, no nation states set up to stop that. A human can go anywhere on earth and migrate and set up camp in a barren land. And I had to think about it because I was doing some research on South Africans. When they came to South Africa, the Dutch, who are now South Africans, when they came to the land, it wasn't like highly populated. They didn't come there killing a bunch of people and displacing them. They came to a part of geography on earth which belongs to nobody, which nobody owns it, and they came to a geographical area that was barren, and they set up camp. Once you set up camp, then you build and become a little more powerful, and then you may impose on neighbors. But I had to realize that these people came to a barren land and set up camp. Although it may not be their native land or their origin, there's no rules. There's no government. There's no nation state. You're exploring the earth. And if me as a human being is exploring the earth, and I come to a part of the earth or another continent which nobody owns and is vacant, and I figure, hey, this is a good spot, and I set up camp, it's fair game. If no Africans at all was mining cobalt, shit that we use for our computers and cell phones, if nobody was mining this shit, knew about it, or cared about it, how can I be mad at Europeans for making it happen and manufacturing it and improving the quality of life of humanity with the discovery and with the mining and the manufacture and production of it? You understand what I'm saying? So, if Africans aren't mining diamonds and selling them and making money off them, or knowing how to mine it and manufacture and produce it, how is this stealing precious resources from a people who didn't give a shit about it or even know about it? Yeah, you get what I'm saying? So a lot of stuff I've had to rethink. And realize this is Earth. And it's here to be built up upon by whoever. Now, you can be mad because you may descend from Africans and you didn't invent this shit and what have you. But in hindsight, you know what, let me say this. I was watching a documentary on, it's slipping my mind the exact country, but a West African country who literally allows Europeans to come in and mine for oil and different precious resources, and they ask for a fee to do it. And hey, if you do this for us, have at it. I had to think about it and say, hey, you guys approved this shit and co-signed this shit and tried to make money off of what Europeans was doing. But then here we are in Black America and the rest of the world acting like someone just outright stole something. And that's far from the truth. If a people don't do anything with the land which you don't use, you lose. Now, people make these statements as we built America, as far as West Africans. Hold on, let me plug my shit up because I see my battery about to die. Built America. They say West Africans, slaves built America. That's not total truth. The structures built here, structures built in Rome, Greece, in the late 1800s, 1900s, are far advanced than anything a West and Central African built. They weren't building structures like that. They didn't have the technology or the knowledge to do it. Let's just be honest. Because of not being scientifically literate and advanced. And being able to exchange ideas on a world stage with other nations. See, the Mediterranean world exchanged ideas with each other, did trade with each other, and advanced. Egypt, Rome, Greece, these people have been doing business with each other and visiting each other for thousands of years before anyone even conquered another. So this influence that all these North Africans and Mediterranean people bounced off each other made them progress, while sub-Saharan Africa remained stagnant. So if everyone around the world was enslaving, whether by ship or by land, Africans didn't have ships and the technology and the scientific literacy to travel around the world and enslave anyone. If they did, they would have. Trust me. They did their shit on land amongst their own neighbors. Queen Nzinga and her empire got big by stepping on and enslaving other tribes around her and in her area. That's how people. Asante tribe in Ghana was the biggest slave trading tribe in Ghana. They built their wealth, their notoriety, and expanded their tribe by pouncing on lesser tribes around them, invading lesser tribes around them. Now, Europeans can invade another country. Africans did the same thing, just by land and in their own region, because they didn't have the shipbuilding technology to be seafaring people, right? So in hindsight, you got to look at this shit. What you don't use, you lose. Are Europeans and other nations wrong for coming to barren lands, setting up camp, and progressing humanity? I've come to the understanding, I don't think so. See, we're in competition with whites and Arabs. We're in this moral competition. But we don't want to admit and be real that we weren't using certain things. And other people knew about certain things and capitalized on it. Period. What you don't use, you lose. Farrakhan making that statement was totally on point. Whether you're talking about the Native Americans or continental Africans, what you don't use, you lose. I can't be mad at them taking resources like cobalt and say, hey, we want to hustle. We're going to mine these diamonds and jumping it off. Now, this West African nation I was talking about a few minutes ago signed business paperwork with Europeans. Said, tear this shit up. As long as you give us a little something, we good. How am I mad at Europeans and claiming they're stealing? They're not stealing if you say okay. Right now, Nigeria is probably the most oil-rich country in West Africa. If they're doing bad business deals, if Ghana is free, the first African country to obtain its freedom from colonialism, and these people ain't mining, tilling their own soil, and selling these precious resources without someone else taking over, that's on them. At a certain point, we got to stop this trying to point blame at white folk. I'm of the mindset now, I'm placing blame on you niggas. I'm placing blame on Africans refusing to get scientifically literate and progress. Refusing to take control and stop taking scraps from people asking to mind their land. Why don't you mind your own shit? Why don't you go get an education and figure out how to do shit and do it yourself and become a world power? To become a world power, you have to sell, import and export, and make money and go to fucking work. Niggas ain't went to work. Niggas been lazy. What you don't use, you lose. So don't come talking to me no shit about, oh, they stealing precious resources. When I'm sitting here watching documentaries of all these African countries and their leaders co-signing people to take this shit. It's all a fucking lie. You guys have gained your freedom, but Africa has lacked in political education and how can I couch? Let me just say political military wisdom that will benefit your own people. What you don't use, you lose. The Native Americans lost. Africans lost. The war is over. Europeans won. It's over. If you can't beat them, you join them. You join them and take control. But what they set up was a beautiful thing. And you got to give fucking credit.